Hey all, it's Jess. Welcome back to Sunflower Dairy. So if you came along the other day, you saw that I made some homemade tomato sauce. Well, today we have to store it because I don't know about you, but I have no room in my freezer. I live in a little country home. I don't have a lot of room for like 500 freezers, and the couple freezers I do have, they got stuff in them. So I have to store my sauce another way so that I can use it later when I need it, so I don't have to try to hurry up and get it used up before it goes bad. So today I'm going to be storing it. So I'm going to be get my jars all ready. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure you have your jars all sterilized. You can either boil them in water or you can sanitize them, but you just want to make sure that they're sanitized so you're not getting any bacteria in your jars. Next thing you want to do is you want to boil your lids. So I have those back there boiling. So you want to boil your lids and get those all sanitized. So you want everything all sanitized. And so we're going to jar up our sauce, and then we're going to put it into a water bath so that we can seal our jars so that they'll stay sealed and they'll stay good. So when I have put stuff in jars and sealed it up, I have had to stay good for 2-3 more years than that. So I've had great success doing this. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, I have my jars all sanitized here. Got my lid boiling. Have my little rings. Then you want to make sure you have your little tools to put your stuff in your water bath. Want your little funnel so you can get it in there so that you can keep your jars clean. And you want a couple little towels to wipe off the rim of your jar, because you don't want anything on the rim of your jar because you won't get a good seal. So I usually have a couple little things right here to wipe off my jars, make sure they stay clean. Alright, so when you're doing sauce, it has tomatoes, so you want to have some sort of like citric acid to help even everything out. So I have lemon juice here, so I'm gonna go ahead and flip all my jars over, and I usually do 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice depending on how big my jars are. I have quarts, so I'm gonna do a couple tablespoons into each one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I have a big old pot of sauce back there. So I have 7 jars here just in case I have more sauce than I think, because sometimes that happens. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to have 5 to 6 jars, but I have 7 jars here just in case. So I'm going to put lemon juice in 5 jars and then see how much sauce I have and see if I'm going to need to put more into jars, because there's no need to waste anything. There's no need to dirty up jars just so you have to clean them again. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put my lemon juice in these. So like I said, a couple tablespoons in each jar. This helps it store better. Alright, so I got my 5 jars done. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get my sauce all ready to put into my jars. So I'm going to get the funnel, put this on our first jar here. I'm going to go get some utensils to get my sauce in my jars. I like using some kind of ladle with like an edge, so it helps it so it actually goes to where I want it to go. So we're going to go ahead and get this going here. And I usually, hang on a second, I usually like to have some kind of pot holder because these jars get pretty hot. So I just get some kind of pot holder and get that going. Alright. So I'm filling up my jars and I'm going to fill them most of the way up, but I'll show you that you do need a little bit of room for a tiny bit of air so that your jar has room where it's sealing so it doesn't overflow or anything like that. So I'll show you that when I get this up to where it's supposed to be. So I have been cooking my sauce down. So the other day when you saw it, it was pretty much full here, and it's down to halfway now, so it's been cooking down. It's thickened up nicely. Alright, so I'm going to show you this. So I fill my jars up just to the bottom of this rim right here. So I have about an inch of room so that my jar has enough sealing room and nothing's going to get too full or anything. So right under that rim, about an inch of space. Alright, so we're done with that one. So I'm going to move my funnel to the next one, and I'm going to teach you how to put your lid on your jar. So, like I said, you want to wipe it off. So we're doing our rim. I'll show you. We're doing our rim. So you want to do the very top of this. Wipe this off. Make sure there's nothing on it. You don't want any sauce or lemon juice or water or steam or anything like that on your rim. So wipe the outside of it, wipe the top of it. Alright, so we've got that all ready. Be careful not to splash it when you send it up there. Alright, so these have been boiling. So these are all sanitized. So these are our lids here. Alright, make sure I have one. Alright, so we're going to make sure we get this lid all wiped off here because we don't want any water on that because that's going to affect our seal as well. Alright, so one last time I'm going to wipe around the rim just to make sure. Alright, this is all dried off. We're going to stick this right here on our jar. I'm going to hold that down so it doesn't move. I'm going to put my little ring on here. This over here. Make sure it goes on correctly. You don't want it to be all over the place. And I do it finger tight. Not too tight, not too loose. You don't want it so tight that it's not going to seal, but you don't want it so loose that stuff's going to be leaking out. So finger tight. Alright, so that one's ready. So we're going to go on to our next one here. We're just going to keep doing the same thing. So I've already got my lemon juice in here. I'm filling this up with sauce. Gonna get this all filled up. And also you want to, ooh, that was really hot. Forgot my glove here. Don't forget doing that. This is really hot. Alright. Alright, so I've got that all filled up there. Alright, so moving this to the next one. Make sure you're wiping your rim off. And this is important because you're not going to get a good seal if you don't make sure that this is all cleaned off here. Alright, getting our lid. Don't forget to wipe your lid off. Alright, hold that on there. Alright, so I'm just going to keep going. Don't forget your oven mitt. Don't want to burn yourself. Alright. Alright, so I'm just going to keep filling these up till I have all of them ready and then show you how I'm getting them into the water bath. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of my jars filled up. These are really hot, so I don't have to put these lids on right away. So I'm going to just go ahead and get these jars filled up real quick and then get all the lids on them, and then we're going to get them right into our water bath. Today's a nice cool day, so it's perfect for doing this because if it's really warm outside, you don't want to be heating up your kitchen because it can get pretty warm between the sauce and the lids and the water bath. And a lot of people are scared to try to do this for storing their harvest, but it just takes practice and making sure that you stay clean and tidy and everything's good and sanitized and that the lids are on correctly. And then you want to make sure that you're processing for the right amount of time in your water bath. Also, another thing is to check your jars and your lids. You want to make sure that there's nothing wrong with them, because that's a lot of times what can happen as well is something can be wrong with your jar or your lid. So you really want to check out your jars and your lids to make sure that everything looks how it's supposed to be, because if something's wrong, most likely your jar isn't going to seal. So a lot of times, you know, if something goes wrong, it's actually not you, it's your jar or your lid. There was something wrong with it. So keep that in mind. And if you try this for the first time and all your lids don't seal, don't give up. Just keep trying. Just try to make sure everything's clean. Make sure there's nothing wrong with your lids or your jars. Make sure your processing time is right. But I promise you, a lot of people are scared to try to store food like this. I promise you, it's not as hard as you think. It just takes practice. You just gotta make sure that you know what you're doing. And yeah, you're gonna get there. Alright, and there's not much left in this, so I'm going to put this over here. And then put this over here. Then I'm going to get my water bath going over here as well. Alright, so here's my water bath canner. And this has a rack in here that I'm going to be putting my jars in. So I want to get my water good and hot to add in here. And I'm going to start filling that up with water. A lot of people, they like to start getting it boiling. But as long as you can get your water good and hot out of your faucet so that it's the same temperature as your jars, you should be pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and get some warm water in here. What's up with my hoodie? It's all crazy. Anyway. So I'm going to be filling the bottom of this up so that it can start warming up, and then I'm going to start putting my jars in here. Alright, so I have the bottom of that all filled up, so I'm going to be wiping off these here, making sure there's nothing on them. Like I said, make sure you get these all good and dry. Tighten them down. Next one. So as you can see, there's really not a ton of crazy steps to this. It's just kind of making sure everything is clean and how it needs to be. All right, I have one more jar to seal up, then we're gonna get them. Oh, looks like I maybe have two more. I'm gonna get these sealed up and then start getting everything in the water bath. All right, one more here. The last lid is always the hardest to get out of the thing because it always likes to stick to the bottom. There we go. We got it. All right, turn that off. All right, so get this all dried here. Make sure there's nothing wrong with your lid. Get your rim all dried off here. All right, get that on there. All right, so now we have our water bath warming up. These are warm. I already have water warming in here, so I'm going to start sticking these in here. So in water bath canner, there's usually room for 7 jars. So mine has room for 7 jars. So I have enough room for all of these. I ended up with 6 jars of sauce from that. All right. So now I'm just going to be filling up my water. Now, like I said, my water's all warmed up good and hot from the faucet, so I'm not worried that it's going to be too cold with the hot jars and shock it. But you do want to make sure your water's warm and the jar's warm so you're not shocking anything and breaking anything. And I'll show you in a minute how full I'm going to fill this, because you do want to make sure that you fill it at the right spot, because if you don't, then it's not going to be good for your jars. Because you want your jars to be fully covered, but you don't want your water bath overflowing, because you don't want your water spilling out the top as it's boiling. So there's kind of a in-between spot. Let you see in just a second, we're almost there with the water. Alright, I'm going to say about one more jar, because we want it about an inch over the top of our lid. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can get that. Just a tiny bit more, I'd say. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and show you all. Alright, so here's our jars. We're about an inch above our lids here. So we have a good, probably almost 2 inches from the top, so it's not going to bubble over. But we have about an inch over our jars. So if you have some, like a bottom of a wooden spoon or something, you can dip in there to touch the top of the lid to make sure it looks like it's about an inch. The water's about an inch over the top of your lids. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my heat up, and I want this to get boiling. So I want this to actually be boiling. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my lid on here. Get my lid on here. And then after this is boiling, then I am going to set my timer for 45 minutes and let this boil for 45 minutes. And once that has boiled for 45 minutes, I'm going to turn the heat off, and then I'm going to let the water cool down a little bit, and then I'm going to take it out with my grabbing tool. You're going to put this in, grab your lid, and then pull your jars out. And you want your jars to make the ping noise. So if you don't know what that is, if you've never done canning, there's this little bubble here that makes this little ping noise, and it will do it itself. So you'll hear this little like actual like ping noise. So once you hear the ping noise and you can feel that there's not that move, because you can feel that this moves. Once you feel that this doesn't move, this bubble doesn't move in the center here, and it's actually sealed, then you know that your jars are sealed. So sometimes you hear it right after you take it out of the water. Sometimes it has to sit for an hour or two. Sometimes it has to sit overnight. So, but you want to make sure you hear the ping noise. If you don't, you might want to check the top of it, make sure it did seal. If not, you might want to try to get it in the water bath or get your jar opened up, figure out why it didn't seal. But all right, I'm gonna get all this finished up, but thank you for watching. Have a blessed day.